A disturbing pattern. In a quiet neighborhood where children played and flowers bloomed, there lived an elderly woman named Edna. Edna was known for her warm smile and kind heart. She had spent most of her life caring for others, but now she needed care herself. After a fall last year, she relied on a wheelchair to move around her home. Her son, Jake, was her devoted caregiver. He loved his mother dearly and always wanted the best for her. However, he couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. Recently, Edna had been falling out of her wheelchair more often, and Jake couldn't figure out why. Each time she fell, she would laugh it off, saying she just lost her balance. But as a worried son, Jake couldn't help but feel concerned. One rainy afternoon, after receiving a call from the neighbor about yet another incident, Jake arrived home to find Edna sitting on the floor, looking embarrassed but unhurt. "I'm fine, Jake. It was just a little slip," she said, brushing off his worries with a wave of her hand. "But Mom, this keeps happening. We need to understand why," Jake pleaded. "Maybe we should look into getting you a better wheelchair or some extra support." Edna shook her head. "I'm okay, really. I just need to be more careful." Yet, Jake could see the uncertainty in her eyes. Something told him that there was more to this than what met the eye. Determined to get to the bottom of the mystery, Jake decided to take action. "I'll set up some cameras around the house," he thought. "If I can capture what's happening, maybe we can figure this out together." That evening, as the sun set and shadows crept into the corners of their home, Jake installed small hidden cameras. He wanted to ensure they wouldn't disturb Edna's daily life, but could still capture her movements. With the cameras in place, he felt a mix of anxiety and hope. He needed answers, but he also dreaded what he might find. The next day, Jake reviewed the footage, his heart racing as he hit play. For hours, he watched Edna go about her routine. She laughed as she tended to her plants, read books, and even spoke to her favorite TV shows. But when she moved to the kitchen, something strange began to unfold. As Edna tried to reach for a can on a high shelf, she tipped over, falling out of her wheelchair once again. Jake felt a pang of panic in his chest. Why isn't she using the brakes? He wondered. But before he could finish that thought, something even stranger happened. As Edna leaned to the side, a shadow appeared just outside the camera's view. Jake squinted at the screen, his curiosity piqued. The footage showed her attempting to pull herself back up, but as she did, it looked like someone, or something, had nudged her wheelchair, making her tip over once again. Could it be a trick of the light? Jake thought, but the nagging feeling in his gut told him otherwise. He had to see more. He fast-forwarded to another part of the day when Edna was alone. Suddenly, the footage changed. Edna was back in her wheelchair, chatting happily with her neighbor through the window. Then, without warning, her chair began to roll away from the table. This time, Jake gasped. It seemed like the wheelchair was moving on its own. Feeling a mix of fear and determination, Jake decided he had to confront his mother about this. That evening, he sat down with Edna over a cup of tea. "Mom, I need to talk to you," he began, his voice serious but caring. "I've set up some cameras to see what's happening when you fall." Edna looked surprised but curious. "Oh, and what did you find?" "I think there's something going on with the wheelchair. It seems to roll on its own sometimes," Jake said, his heart pounding. "I want to show you the footage." Edna's expression turned from surprise to concern. "Are you sure it's not just the way I move? I can be a bit clumsy, you know." "No, Mom, you need to see this. I'm worried about you," Jake insisted. He showed her the clips, his finger trembling as he pressed play. As the footage played, Edna's eyes widened with disbelief. "What is happening?" she whispered, clutching the edge of her chair. "I don't understand." "Neither do I," Jake replied, feeling a wave of anxiety wash over him. "We need to figure this out together. I promise I won't let anything happen to you." Edna nodded, tears welling in her eyes. "I never meant to worry you, Jake. I thought I was just losing my balance." Jake hugged her tightly, feeling the weight of their situation sink in. They were in this together now, and he was determined to protect her at all costs. Little did they know that the shocking truth behind Edna's falls would soon reveal itself, leading them down a path neither of them expected. As they sat together, Edna felt a mixture of fear and determination. The mystery had just begun, and together they would uncover the truth hidden behind the walls of their home. Unraveling the mystery, the sun rose the next morning, casting warm rays of light through the curtains of Edna's cozy living room. Jake woke up with a heavy heart, the unsettling images from the previous night still fresh in his mind. After breakfast, he knew they needed to come up with a plan. He wanted to ensure Edna's safety and figure out why her wheelchair seemed to have a mind of its own. "Mom," Jake called as he walked into the living room, "let's take a look at the wheelchair together. Maybe we can fix something." Edna looked up from her favorite armchair, her brow furrowed with concern. "You really think there's something wrong with it?" "I'm not sure," Jake replied, "but I think it's worth checking. Let's go to the garage. I want to see how the brakes are working." Together, they moved to the garage where the wheelchair sat. Jake inspected it closely, looking for any obvious issues. He checked the brakes, wheels, and even the seat. Everything seemed in place, and he couldn't find anything that might cause the chair to roll unexpectedly. Frustration bubbled within him. "This doesn't make sense," he muttered. "Maybe it's just a strange coincidence," Edna suggested, trying to remain optimistic. Jake shook his head. "No, Mom. There's something going on, and I won't rest until I find out what it is." Just then, he had an idea. "What if we make a note of every time you feel like you're losing your balance? Maybe we can spot a pattern." Edna nodded, feeling relieved to have something proactive to do. "That sounds like a good idea. I can keep a journal of my falls and what happened leading up to them." They went inside, and Edna fetched a notebook and pen. As she began writing, Jake couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to this situation than they understood. He sat down across from her, ready to hear whatever she had to say. "Okay," Edna said, looking serious. "I fell twice last week. Once when I was reaching for the remote, and once when I was trying to get a cookie from the jar. Was anyone else around during those times?" Jake asked, taking notes. "No, I was alone," Edna replied. "But I did feel a little dizzy before both falls. Maybe that has something to do with it." Jake frowned. "It could, but let's keep watching the footage, just to be sure. I'll set up the cameras again for today, and we'll take notes on everything." After a quick lunch, Jake set up the cameras again, determined to capture more evidence. Edna sat in her chair, feeling anxious but supported by her son's determination. "I appreciate you doing this for me, Jake," she said, her voice soft. "It means a lot." "Of course, Mom. I just want you to be safe," Jake replied with a reassuring smile. As the day went on, they resumed their routine. Jake watched the cameras closely while Edna focused on her gardening. She tended to her flowers, humming a sweet tune, seemingly carefree. But Jake's heart raced with worry. He knew that any moment could turn into a scary incident. Later in the afternoon, Jake decided to review the footage from earlier. As he watched, he suddenly froze. On the video, Edna was happily watering her plants when she reached for something just out of reach. The wheelchair moved slightly forward, as if it had a life of its own, tipping her over. "What the?" Jake gasped, leaning closer to the screen. "Why is this happening?" He hit rewind, watching the scene play over and over. Each time, the wheelchair rolled ever so slightly, and each time, Edna lost her balance. "This doesn't make sense," he muttered. "There must be something causing this." His heart raced as he continued to analyze the footage. Then he noticed something that made his stomach drop. In the corner of the frame, just out of focus, was a faint shadow that appeared whenever the wheelchair moved. It was so subtle that he had missed it before. Jake's hands trembled as he rewound the video again, focusing on that shadow. It flickered in and out, almost like a reflection or a trick of the light. Could it be? Jake whispered to himself. His mind raced with possibilities. Was someone tampering with the wheelchair? Or was it an issue with the flooring? Either way, he needed to investigate further. That evening after dinner, Jake gathered his courage and sat down with Edna again. "Mom, I think there's something more happening. I saw a strange shadow in the footage when you fell. We might need to dig deeper." Edna's eyes widened with concern. "A shadow? Do you think someone is playing tricks on me?" "I don't know yet," Jake admitted, "but we need to keep an eye out for anything unusual. I want you to be careful, especially when you're alone." "I will, Jake. I promise," Edna said, her voice steady despite her worries. The next day, Jake took the day off work. He wanted to be there for Edna, and he needed to find out what was happening. They decided to set up more cameras, positioning them in various angles to catch everything around the wheelchair. As they worked together, Jake couldn't shake the feeling of unease settling in his stomach. "If someone is trying to hurt her, I'll do everything to protect her," he vowed silently. Hours passed, and they kept watch on the cameras, each moment filled with anticipation. They chatted and reminisced about old memories, but Jake's focus remained on the screens. As evening approached, he couldn't help but feel the weight of the mystery pressing down on him. Then, as twilight fell, it happened again. Edna, reaching for a book on the top shelf, lost her balance, and the wheelchair tipped forward. Jake rushed to her side, helping her back up. "Are you okay?" he asked, his heart racing. "Yes, dear, I'm fine. But it's so frustrating," Edna replied, her eyes filled with confusion. "Why does this keep happening?" Jake glanced at the screen, the same shadow flickering behind her once again. He was determined to find out who or what was behind this unsettling mystery. "Let's not give up, Mom," he encouraged her, gripping her hand tightly. "We will figure this out. I promise." As they settled in for the night, Jake knew they were on the verge of discovering something significant. With each passing moment, the mystery unraveled, and he was determined to protect his mother from whatever was lurking in the shadows. Secrets in the shadows. As the days went by, Jake felt a mixture of determination and dread. The shadow on the video had sparked a fire within him to uncover the truth behind Edna's falls. Each day, he reviewed the footage and made notes, trying to pinpoint the moments when Edna lost her balance. But the more he watched, the more questions he had. One evening after a long day of work, Jake decided to analyze the footage again. He set up his laptop in the living room, determined to catch every detail. As the images played out, he focused intensely on the shadow. It appeared whenever Edna reached for something, often just before she tipped over. "This doesn't make any sense," Jake murmured to himself. What could be causing this? He leaned closer to the screen, watching the shadow dance in and out of view. Suddenly, something clicked. Jake remembered that his mother had mentioned hearing strange noises at night. Could the shadow be connected to those noises? With a renewed sense of urgency, Jake decided they needed to take action. "Mom," he called, his voice tinged with excitement. "I think we need to investigate those noises you mentioned. Maybe they have something to do with the wheelchair incidents." Edna looked up, her expression a mix of worry and curiosity. "You think so? What kind of noises?" "I don't know yet, but it's worth checking out," Jake replied. "We can set up cameras in your bedroom, and the hallway too." Edna nodded, her face pale with concern. "If you think it will help, I'm willing to try." That night, they placed cameras strategically throughout the house, especially near Edna's bedroom. They wanted to capture any sounds or movements that might be responsible for the strange occurrences. After setting everything up, Jake felt a sense of accomplishment, but also a lingering fear. What if they discovered something they weren't prepared for? As they settled in for the night, Jake stayed alert, listening for any sounds that might come from the darkness. Hours passed, and the house was quiet, save for the occasional creak of the old floorboards. Jake finally succumbed to exhaustion and fell asleep on the couch. In the early morning hours, a loud noise jolted him awake. Jake's heart raced as he glanced at the clock. It was just after 2 a.m. The house was silent again, but he felt an eerie stillness in the air. He picked up his phone and quickly reviewed the footage from the cameras in Edna's bedroom. As he scanned through the video, he noticed something unusual. The footage showed Edna peacefully sleeping, but then a strange rustling noise echoed in the background. Suddenly, the shadow reappeared, flickering near her wheelchair. Jake's stomach dropped. "What is going on?" he whispered, his heart pounding. He rewound the footage to see if he could identify the source of the sound. As he replayed the clip, he noticed that the shadow seemed to grow larger and darker just before the noise occurred. Feeling a mix of fear and urgency, Jake knew he had to confront his mother about what he had seen. He hurried to Edna's bedroom and gently shook her awake. "Mom, I need to talk to you." Edna opened her eyes, looking groggy but concerned. "What is it, dear?" "Something strange is happening at night. I just watched the footage, and I saw that shadow again. It was near your wheelchair," Jake explained, his voice trembling. "I think we need to figure out what's going on." Edna sat up, her eyes wide with fear. "Oh my goodness, Jake. I thought those were just my imagination. I didn't want to worry you." "We can't ignore this any longer," Jake said firmly. "I want to keep you safe, and we need to understand what's happening." They decided to review the footage together, and as they watched, Edna gasped when she saw the shadow. "I never noticed that before. What does it mean?" "I don't know yet," Jake replied, his mind racing. "But I think we need to set up a sound recorder to capture any noises at night. We have to understand what's behind this." Edna nodded, feeling a mix of fear and resolve. "Let's do it. I want to know the truth, no matter how scary it may be." The following day, they bought a high-quality sound recorder and set it up in Edna's room. They placed it near the wheelchair, hoping it would capture any strange noises throughout the night. Jake felt a mix of anticipation and dread as they prepared for another night of uncertainty. That evening, they sat together on the porch, discussing the odd events surrounding Edna's wheelchair. "You know, Mom," Jake began, "it might be good to talk to the neighbors about any strange happenings. Maybe someone has seen something." Edna nodded, her expression thoughtful. "That's a great idea. I'll talk to Mrs. Jenkins tomorrow. She often sits on her porch at night." After a long evening filled with anxious conversations and preparations, they went to bed, hoping that the recorder would provide answers. The night passed slowly, with the only sounds being the gentle rustle of leaves and the occasional hoot of an owl. When morning came, Jake woke up early, feeling restless. He rushed to check the sound recorder, eager to hear what it had captured. As he listened, his heart raced. The recording started with soft, ambient sounds. Edna's gentle breathing, the creaks of the house settling. Then, around 2:30 a.m., a faint rustling noise broke through the silence. Jake's ears perked up, and he leaned closer. The noise intensified, followed by a soft, almost imperceptible whisper. "What was that?" Jake gasped, stopping the recording. His mind raced with possibilities. Was that someone? Or something? He replayed the section again and again, each time feeling a chill run down his spine. The whispering continued, barely audible but undeniably there. Determined to get to the bottom of this mystery, Jake decided he needed to confront the neighbors and gather more information. "Mom, I think we need to talk to Mrs. Jenkins today," he said, looking serious. "I want to know if she's noticed anything strange around our house." Edna's face was pale, but she nodded. "Let's do it, Jake. I want to get to the bottom of this." As they prepared to leave, Jake felt a mixture of fear and hope. They were on the brink of uncovering something significant, and he was ready to face whatever truth lay ahead, even if it meant confronting shadows that haunted their home. The neighbors speak. The morning sun shone brightly as Jake and Edna prepared to visit their neighbor, Mrs. Jenkins. Jake felt a sense of urgency as they made their way next door. He couldn't shake the feeling that the answers they sought might lie in the conversations they were about to have. As they approached the familiar front porch of Mrs. Jenkins, Jake glanced at his mother, who seemed both anxious and determined. "Remember, Mom, we're just gathering information. We need to know if anyone has seen anything strange." Edna nodded, her grip tightening on her handbag. "I know, but I can't help but feel a little nervous." They knocked on the door, and moments later, Mrs. Jenkins answered with a warm smile. "Hello, dears. What brings you here today?" "Hi, Mrs. Jenkins," Jake replied, forcing a smile despite the tension in his stomach. "We wanted to ask you something. Can we come in?" "Of course. Please come in," she said, ushering them inside. The living room smelled of freshly baked cookies, instantly making Jake feel more at ease. Once seated, Edna cleared her throat. "We've been having some unusual incidents at home. I've been falling out of my wheelchair, and we think something strange might be happening. We just wanted to know if you've noticed anything odd around our house lately." Mrs. Jenkins frowned, concern washing over her face. "Oh my, Edna, I hadn't heard about that. I'm so sorry to hear you're having trouble." Jake leaned forward, eager to hear her response. "Have you seen anyone lingering around our property or any strange noises at night?" Mrs. Jenkins thought for a moment, her brow furrowing. "Now that you mention it, I have seen some odd things lately. A few nights ago, I was sitting on my porch when I heard some strange sounds coming from your direction. It sounded like whispers or soft voices." Jake's heart raced. "Really? What time did you hear it?" "About 2:30 a.m., she replied, her eyes widening. "I thought I was just imagining things at first, but it kept happening for a few nights." Edna exchanged a worried glance with Jake. "Did you see anything? Anyone near our house?" Mrs. Jenkins shook her head. "No, I didn't see anyone, just the sounds, but it was enough to make me feel uneasy." "Thank you for telling us," Jake said, feeling a mix of relief and dread. "We've also captured some strange noises on a recorder, and they seem to coincide with those times." Edna added, "We're trying to figure out if someone is trying to play tricks on us, or if something else is going on." "I hope you find the answers," Mrs. Jenkins said softly. "If I notice anything else, I promise to let you know right away." As they left Mrs. Jenkins' home, Jake felt a sense of urgency intensifying within him. The pieces of the puzzle were starting to come together, but they still didn't have the full picture. He glanced at his mother, who looked deep in thought. "Mom, we need to keep investigating," Jake said, his determination growing stronger. "If there are whispers at night and shadows moving around, there must be a reason for it." Edna nodded, her expression serious. "What do you think we should do next?" "I think we should talk to the other neighbors. They might have seen something too," Jake suggested. "Plus, I want to set up a different kind of camera, one that can capture night vision. That way, we can see what's happening even in the dark." "Good idea," Edna agreed. "Let's do it. I want to know what's going on for my own peace of mind." After their conversation, they spent the afternoon visiting several neighbors, asking if they had noticed anything unusual. To their surprise, many of them had similar stories. Some had heard whispers or strange noises at odd hours, while others had seen flickers of movement near Edna's house. "Something is definitely going on," Jake said, feeling a chill run down his spine. "I just hope we can figure out what it is before it's too late." As dusk approached, Jake returned home and set up a new night vision camera in Edna's bedroom. He positioned it to capture everything around the wheelchair, hoping it would provide clarity to the unsettling events. That night, they both went to bed with a mix of excitement and fear. Jake had a sense that they were close to uncovering the truth, but he also felt the weight of the unknown pressing down on them. They settled into their beds, each lost in their thoughts, hoping that the night would bring answers. Around 2 a.m., Jake was jolted awake by a sudden noise. His heart raced as he quickly turned to the monitor showing the night vision footage. The screen flickered with green light, revealing Edna's room. At first, everything seemed calm. Then he saw the wheelchair moving slightly, just as it had in the previous recordings. The hairs on the back of his neck stood up as he leaned closer to the screen. Suddenly, a shadow flickered across the room, darting past the wheelchair. "Mom," Jake whispered urgently, shaking her awake. "Wake up. You need to see this." Edna opened her eyes, groggy but alert. "What is it, Jake?" "Look at the screen," he exclaimed, pointing to the monitor. As Edna squinted at the footage, her face paled. "Oh my goodness, what is that?" They watched in shock as the shadow grew larger and seemed to swirl around the wheelchair, almost like a dark fog. The whispers echoed softly, a chilling melody that sent shivers down their spines. Jake's heart raced. "This can't be happening. What does it mean?" "I don't know," Edna replied, her voice trembling. "But it feels sinister." As they continued to watch, the shadow began to shift, almost taking on a form. It was difficult to see clearly, but there was an unsettling feeling that something was watching them from the dark. Jake's hands shook as he reached for the remote to pause the video. "This is too much. We have to do something. We need help." Edna nodded, her eyes wide with fear. "I agree. Let's talk to someone who might know what this is." They both sat in silence, the weight of their discovery sinking in. They were no longer just investigating strange noises. They had stumbled upon something deeper, something that required immediate attention. "Tomorrow, I'll reach out to that paranormal investigator I heard about from the neighbors," Jake said, trying to steady his voice. "We need someone who can help us understand what we're dealing with." Edna took a deep breath, her fear turning into resolve. "Yes, let's do that. I want to know the truth, even if it's scary." As they prepared for bed once more, Jake felt a sense of determination rise within him. They would face whatever was lurking in the shadows together. No matter how frightening the truth might be, they were ready to confront it. Seeking help. The next morning, Jake awoke with a mix of anxiety and determination. He knew they needed to act quickly. The shadow they had seen on the night vision footage was not just a figment of their imagination. Something was truly amiss in their home, and they needed answers. As he made his way downstairs, Jake's mind raced with thoughts of what lay ahead. He had heard about a paranormal investigator named Lisa from the neighbors, a woman known for her expertise in strange occurrences. Jake grabbed his phone and dialed the number he had saved earlier. After a few rings, Lisa answered, her voice warm yet professional. "Hello, this is Lisa. How can I help you today?" "Hi, Lisa," Jake replied, trying to keep his voice steady. "My name is Jake. I think I need your help. My mother and I have been experiencing some strange things in our home. It started with her falling out of her wheelchair, and now we've captured some unusual footage. We think something might be wrong." There was a brief silence on the other end, and Jake held his breath. Finally, Lisa spoke. "I see. I'd be glad to help. Can you tell me a bit more about what you've experienced?" Jake took a deep breath, recalling everything he and Edna had witnessed. "My mom has fallen out of her wheelchair several times, and we thought it was just accidents. But then we noticed shadows moving in her room and strange noises at night. Just last night, we caught something on camera, a dark shadow swirling around her wheelchair." "Sounds unsettling," Lisa said. "I'd like to come by and take a look. When would be a good time for you?" "Any time is fine," Jake replied eagerly. "The sooner, the better." They agreed on a time for later that day. As Jake hung up, he felt a rush of hope mixed with dread. They were finally taking a step towards uncovering the truth. When Lisa arrived, she carried a bag filled with various tools and equipment. Her presence felt reassuring, as she exuded confidence and understanding. "Thank you for having me," she said, shaking hands with both Jake and Edna. "I understand you've been having some troubling experiences. Let's see what we can find." Jake led Lisa to Edna's room, where the night vision camera was still set up. As he played the footage for her, he noticed Lisa's expression shift from curiosity to concern. She studied the shadows and whispers closely, taking notes as they watched together. "This is definitely strange," Lisa said after watching the video. "I can sense an energy here, and it doesn't feel right. We need to investigate further." "Do you think it's dangerous?" Edna asked, her voice trembling slightly. "I can't say for sure yet," Lisa replied, her tone calm. "But I'm here to help. I'll set up some equipment to see if we can capture any more evidence." Jake felt a mix of relief and apprehension as Lisa began to unpack her tools. She placed various devices around the room, including an EMF meter and a digital recorder. "These will help us measure any unusual electromagnetic fields and capture any sounds we can't hear with our own ears." As Lisa worked, she explained her process to Jake and Edna. Sometimes, spirits can be drawn to certain energies, especially if they feel they have something to communicate. "We'll take our time and see if anything unusual happens." Jake watched intently as Lisa arranged the equipment. It was clear she knew what she was doing. He felt hopeful that they might finally get some answers. After a while, they settled into the living room to wait. Lisa suggested they relax and see if anything happened while they chatted. As they talked about their experiences, the atmosphere in the room began to shift. The air felt charged, as if something was ready to reveal itself. Suddenly, the EMF meter started to beep softly. Jake's heart raced. "Is that supposed to happen?" he asked, glancing at Lisa. "Yes, it indicates a change in the electromagnetic field," she said, her eyes lighting up with interest. "This could mean we have a presence in the room." Edna looked nervous but intrigued. "What does that mean for us?" Lisa smiled reassuringly. "It could just be a curious energy, but we need to ask some questions. I'll use this recorder to see if we can communicate." As Lisa began asking questions into the recorder, Jake and Edna watched closely. "Is anyone here with us?" she asked, her voice steady. "If so, can you give us a sign?" The room fell silent, and for a moment, it felt as if time had stopped. Then, unexpectedly, the sound of a soft whisper echoed through the air. Jake's breath caught in his throat. "Did you hear that?" he whispered, eyes wide. Lisa nodded, her expression serious. "Let's review the recording." They played back the audio, and their hearts raced as they heard a faint voice responding to Lisa's questions. "Help. Me," it said, barely audible but unmistakable. Jake's heart raced. "Who is it? What do they want?" Lisa looked thoughtful. "It could be someone trying to reach out for help. We need to dig deeper to understand what this means." The tension in the room grew thicker as Lisa prepared to conduct a more thorough investigation. "We can use some additional methods to connect with this energy," she said, her tone calm yet firm. Edna took a deep breath, her face pale. "What do we need to do?" "We'll set up a spirit box," Lisa explained. "It's a device that scans radio frequencies. Sometimes spirits can use it to communicate, but be prepared, it might get a little intense." Jake and Edna exchanged glances, their resolve solidifying. They were determined to uncover the truth behind the strange occurrences in their home. Whatever had been haunting them, they were ready to face it together. As Lisa set up the spirit box, the atmosphere grew heavier. Shadows danced on the walls, and the air crackled with anticipation. Jake could feel his heart pounding in his chest. They were on the brink of discovering something significant, and he could sense that this was only the beginning. Whatever was happening in their home, they would confront it head-on. Together, they would uncover the mystery of the shadows that had invaded their lives. Unveiling the past. The room was filled with an eerie silence as Lisa finished setting up the spirit box. Jake and Edna sat close together, anticipation coursing through them. Jake's heart raced, but he felt a sense of purpose. They were finally taking steps to uncover the truth behind the strange occurrences that had plagued their home. "Are you ready?" Lisa asked, her voice steady but with a hint of excitement. Both Jake and Edna nodded, gripping the edge of their seats. Lisa turned on the spirit box, and it began to scan through radio frequencies, emitting a soft static noise. "If there's anyone here with us, please speak into this device," she said, her tone inviting yet firm. The static filled the room, blending with a palpable tension in the air. After a few moments, they began to hear snippets of voices, distorted yet clear enough to grasp. The room felt alive, charged with energy. Suddenly, a voice cut through the static. "Help. Me." It was faint but distinctly clear, sending chills down Jake's spine. "Who are you?" Lisa asked, leaning closer to the spirit box. "Can you tell us your name?" For a moment, there was only static. Then, another voice broke through, slightly louder this time. "Anna." Jake's breath hitched. "Anna? Who is Anna?" He whispered, looking at his mother, whose face had paled. "I don't know, but it feels familiar," Edna murmured, her voice trembling slightly. "It might be someone from my past." Lisa pressed further. "Anna, what happened to you? Why are you here?" There was a pause, and then the spirit box crackled. "Trapped. Lost." Edna's eyes filled with tears. "Trapped. What does that mean?" she asked softly, her voice thick with emotion. "Let's keep going," Lisa urged gently. "Anna, can you tell us why you are trapped?" The static hummed, and a few moments passed before another response came through. "In the house. Pain." Jake exchanged a concerned look with Edna. "In this house? Is that why we're experiencing these things?" Edna nodded slowly, her mind racing. "I remember now. Anna was a childhood friend of mine. We used to play together here when I was young. But I never knew what happened to her." Lisa's expression turned serious. "What happened to her, Edna? Do you remember anything?" Edna took a deep breath, the memories flooding back. Anna lived down the street. One day, she disappeared. There were search parties, but no one could find her. It was a dark time for our neighborhood. Jake listened intently, piecing together the fragments of the past. "Do you think she's trying to reach out to you? Maybe she's connected to what's happening now." "I don't know," Edna said, her voice quivering. "But if she's trapped, I want to help her. I have to find out what happened." Lisa nodded, her eyes shining with understanding. "That's a good instinct, Edna. Sometimes spirits linger because they need closure. If we can find out how Anna died, we might be able to help her move on." Jake felt a swell of determination. "Let's dig deeper into Anna's story. If she needs help, we can't just leave her like this." With renewed focus, they started brainstorming how to find out more about Anna. Lisa suggested they look for old records, news articles, or even reach out to neighbors who might have known Anna. "We need to uncover the truth," Jake said firmly. "We owe it to Anna and to ourselves to put this to rest." As they planned their next steps, Lisa continued to scan the spirit box, hoping to gather more information. Each time a voice crackled through, it felt like a thread connecting them to the past. "Anna, if you're here, please let us know you're with us," Lisa said gently. Suddenly, the spirit box emitted a loud crackle, and a voice came through, frantic and desperate. "Help me. Remember." Jake's heart raced as he felt the urgency in Anna's voice. "We will help you, Anna. We just need to know what happened. Please, give us a sign." The air grew colder and the static intensified, creating an atmosphere thick with emotion. Jake could feel a weight pressing down on him, a mix of fear and empathy. He wanted to understand, to uncover the truth for Anna. After a while, the spirit box remained silent, leaving them in an uneasy stillness. "We should head out and start gathering information," Lisa suggested. "The more we learn about Anna, the better chance we have to help her." Edna nodded, her resolve strengthened. "Yes, let's do it. I need to know what happened to her." They decided to start with the local library. There might be old newspapers or records about Anna's disappearance that could shed light on the mystery. As they prepared to leave, Lisa gathered her equipment, ensuring everything was secure. Before they headed out, Jake glanced at the spirit box one last time. "Thank you, Anna. We'll do our best to help you," he whispered, feeling a connection to the girl whose voice had reached out from beyond. As they stepped outside, the sun shone brightly, a stark contrast to the heavy emotions they carried. They drove to the library, determination and curiosity driving them forward. Upon arriving, they headed straight for the archives. Jake felt a sense of urgency as he began searching through old newspapers, his fingers tracing the headlines. He knew they were getting closer to the truth, and he could feel Anna's presence guiding them. "Let's split up," Lisa suggested. "Edna, you can look through the microfilm while Jake and I check the old newspaper stacks." Edna agreed, and they all set to work. Hours passed as they scoured through dusty pages and faded articles, piecing together bits of information about Anna's life. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, Jake stumbled upon an article with a familiar name. "Mom, look at this," he called out, holding up the paper. Edna rushed over, her eyes widening as she read the headline, "Local Girl Missing. Search Efforts Continue." The article detailed Anna's disappearance, describing her as a bright and cheerful girl who had vanished without a trace. "They never found her," Edna said, her voice trembling. "Oh, Anna, I'm so sorry." Jake continued reading, his heart sinking. "It says here that she was last seen playing in the park near our neighborhood. They suspect she might have been abducted." Lisa leaned in closer, examining the details. "This could explain why she's lingering here. She never had closure." "Mom, do you remember anything else about the day she disappeared?" Jake asked, his mind racing. Edna shook her head slowly, tears filling her eyes. "No, I was too young. I just remember everyone was so worried. It was a terrible time for our community." Jake felt a surge of determination. "We need to go to that park. Maybe there are more clues. Maybe she wants us to find something there." Edna wiped her tears, her eyes resolute. "Yes, let's go. We have to do this for Anna." As they made their way to the park, Jake felt a connection growing stronger. Whatever had happened to Anna, they were determined to uncover the truth and help her find peace at last. Confronting the truth. The sun was beginning to set as Jake, Edna, and Lisa arrived at the park. The golden light cast long shadows across the grass, creating an almost magical atmosphere. But for Jake, this was not a place of wonder. It felt heavy with the past, a place where something dark had happened. "This is where it all started," Edna whispered, her voice barely audible. She looked around, memories flooding back. "I used to come here with Anna. We would play on the swings and pick flowers." Jake took a deep breath, trying to shake off the chilling feeling creeping up his spine. "Let's split up and search for anything unusual. Maybe there's something here that can help us understand what happened to her." Lisa nodded, pulling out her camera and voice recorder. "I'll document everything, and we can use the spirit box here to see if Anna has more to say." Edna and Jake walked toward the swings, while Lisa set up her equipment near the old oak tree at the park center. The atmosphere felt tense, each creak of the swings reminding them of the laughter that once filled this space. "Mom, do you think Anna might be able to communicate with us here?" Jake asked, glancing at Edna, who was lost in her memories. "I hope so," she replied softly. "I just want to know what happened to her. It feels like I owe her that much." As they searched the area, Jake noticed a small clearing off to the side. Curiosity tugged at him, so he moved toward it. There was an old bench hidden beneath the bushes, and something shiny caught his eye. He crouched down, brushing aside the leaves, revealing a locket half buried in the dirt. "Mom, look at this," Jake called out, holding the locket up for Edna to see. Edna rushed over, her eyes widening. "That looks like Anna's," she exclaimed, reaching out to take it. She opened the locket carefully, revealing two tiny pictures inside, one of a young girl and one of a family. "Do you recognize these people?" Jake asked, his heart racing. "I think this is Anna," Edna said, pointing to the picture of the girl. "But I don't know who the other one is." Lisa, having heard their conversation, came over to examine the locket. This could be significant. It might lead us to Anna's family or someone who knew her. Feeling the surge of determination, Jake decided to take action. Let's keep looking around. If we find more clues, we might uncover what happened to Anna. As they searched the area, Lisa began using the spirit box. Anna, if you're here, please let us know. We found something that belongs to you. For a moment, the box remained silent. Then, the familiar crackling sound filled the air, followed by a soft voice. Help me. Find them. Edna shivered at the words. What does she mean? I think she's asking us to find her family, Jake replied, piecing together the mystery. Maybe they can tell us what happened to her. Just then, a light breeze swept through the park, rustling the leaves above them. Edna felt a chill run down her spine, as if Anna's spirit was urging them onward. Let's check the area where she was last seen. There might be more clues there. They followed the path leading deeper into the park, where the trees grew denser. The atmosphere shifted, feeling heavier as they approached a small clearing with a forgotten playground. The swings creaked eerily in the wind, a haunting reminder of the joy that once filled this place. Lisa set up her equipment once more, and Jake felt a knot tightening in his stomach. If Anna is still here, I hope she can give us a sign.